My name is Bill Rowlands. Most people just call me Bill. Some jokingly call me the Caveman. I work as a ranger at Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. It's the largest cave system in the world. And when you're deep inside it, with only your flashlight and the sound of your breath, it feels even bigger, sometimes endless. People think being a ranger is a peaceful job. You walk trails, help lost tourists, maybe rescue a hiker who wandered off the path. But Mammoth Cave is different. It's not just the size, it's the silence. The way sound vanishes, the way light bends in the dark, and the way you sometimes feel like you're not alone. I haven't always been comfortable underground. My father and grandfather were coal miners. I followed them into the tunnels when I was younger. One day, the shaft collapsed. 5 of us went in, 2 came out. My brother was not one of them after that. The darkness never felt the same. I developed a fear of closed spaces, claustrophobia. The doctors called it, but what replaced that fear was worse: guilt. Guilt for surviving, for walking away. Maybe that's why I took this job. Maybe I thought the cave could teach me peace, or maybe, deep down, I wanted it to take me to. About 3 months ago, something changed. It started with tremors, tiny ones. Barely strong enough to register, but every time the ground shook, something new appeared. Tunnels, cracks, openings in places we had already mapped. Places that should have been solid rock. One morning, my supervisor handed me a map with a section circled in red. "Hollow Run," he said. "A new tunnel opened near there. Looks stable. Take a team and go check it out. Hollow Run is deep. We don't usually go down there unless we have to. The air is too still, too quiet. Even when the rest of the cave is warm, Hollow Run stays cold." But I didn't ask questions. Orders are orders. Our team was 3. Me, Palmer, and Davis. Palmer was fresh out of college. Young, eager, curious. Davis was the quiet type. He'd been working here longer than me, dependable, calm. We entered the new tunnel at 8 in the morning. The entrance looked strange, like it had been pushed open from the inside. The rock was damp, the cracks looked fresh. And the moment we stepped in, the temperature dropped. A full 10 degrees, we could see our breath. We marked our path carefully, dropping glow sticks every 100 feet. Standard protocol, but the deeper we went, the quieter it became. There were no bats, no water dripping, no wind. Our footsteps didn't echo. It felt like the cave was swallowing the sound, absorbing it. Then came the tapping. At first, I thought it was a rock falling, nothing unusual. But then it came again. 3 taps, then silence, and again 3 taps. Then nothing. Palmer froze. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. We all stopped. I held up a hand, signaling silence. The taps came again, closer. Tap, tap, tap. We swept our lights across the tunnel, but there was nothing. Just shadows and stone. We moved forward slowly. The tapping kept following us, or maybe leading us. It was hard to tell where it was coming from. Above, behind, inside. Then we saw something. The shadows were wrong. They didn't follow our lights. They moved on their own, along the ceiling, against the beam, like they had a purpose. I looked at Palmer. He had gone pale. Davis said it was just our eyes adjusting, but I could hear it in his voice. He didn't believe that. An hour passed. Then we found the chamber. It was massive. Stone formations rose from the ground like jagged teeth, but it wasn't the size that made us stop. It was the walls. They were covered in shapes, faces. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Twisted, screaming, mouths frozen in pain, eyes wide in terror. They looked like they had been melted into the stone, trapped. Palmer began to shake. He whispered, "I don't think this place was made by nature." Then all our lights flickered. For one brief moment, we were in total darkness. And in that darkness, I heard a breath, not mine, not theirs. Something else. When the lights returned, something moved behind the formations. A shape, tall, thin, almost human. It vanished when I turned my light. Then came the voice, a whisper. It didn't come from behind or ahead. It came from everywhere. "You should not have come," Palmer screamed. He dropped his flashlight and ran. Davis chased after him, yelling his name. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. My feet were heavy, like stuck in stone. The whisper came again. It watches. It remembers. It feeds. I forced myself to move. I ran after them. I could hear Palmer's voice ahead, shouting. Then choking, then silence. I turned a corner and found Davis alone. Blood on his hands, eyes wide. "It took him," he said. "It took him into the wall." I grabbed his arm and we ran somehow. We made it back to the surface. The sunlight had never looked so bright. I collapsed to the ground, gasping, shaking. Davis just stood there, silent, staring back into the cave. "We have to seal it," he said. "We can't let that thing out." I didn't sleep that night, even after I made the report. Even after I told the higher-ups that Palmer had gotten separated during a collapse. That we couldn't retrieve his body, that it was a tragic accident. No one questioned it, not officially, but I knew better. That night, I sat on the porch of my cabin, staring out at the trees. Davis stayed inside. He hadn't said a word since we came back. Just sat on the bed, staring at the floor. His hands were still shaking. Outside, the wind made the trees creak. But it didn't sound like trees. It sounded like something breathing through the branches, low, slow, like it was waiting. I barely remember when I fell asleep, but I do remember the dream. I was back in the chamber, the one with the faces. But this time they were moving. Their mouths opened and closed. Their eyes rolled in agony. I could hear them now. But not screaming, whispering, all at once, thousands of them. Calling out names, Palmer's name and mine. I woke up choking, gasping for air. There was dirt under my fingernails, and on my chest, right in the center, was a stone, small, black, warm to the touch. Like it had been inside something living, I threw it across the room. But when I turned back, it was in my hand again. That's when I knew. Whatever had been down there, it followed us back. And it had marked me. Days passed, the forest around the park changed. The birds stopped coming near. The deer refused to cross certain parts of the woods. The air felt wrong. Like something was pushing against the world from the other side. I started seeing symbols carved into the trees, circles, eyes, lines like wings, always in the same pattern. And always near places where hikers had disappeared. I checked the reports. Over the last 10 years, the number of missing persons near Hollow Run had been increasing, quietly, steadily. No one had put it together. But I did. I plotted every disappearance on a map. The results made my blood run cold. They formed a circle, and at the center of that circle was the chamber, the one with the faces. It wasn't a coincidence. Something had been sleeping beneath that place. Something ancient, and now it was waking up. That night, Davis came to my door. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, his skin pale and sunken, but the worst part, his hands were covered in scratches, deep, raw, like he had been clawing at something in his sleep. "It followed me too," he said. He had moved to another town to get away. Left the park, but the tapping, it never stopped. 3 taps, then silence, then again. He said he could hear it in the walls, in the trees, in the static of his car radio. Then he pulled something from his bag. It was a stone, identical to mine, still warm, still pulsing. "We're keys," he said. "It's using us, feeding through us, spreading. And if we don't stop it, it's going to open." I didn't want to believe him, but deep down, I already did. Because every time I closed my eyes, I could hear the whisper, not outside, inside. Inside my skull, it remembers, it said. And it wants to be remembered. We decided to go back. Not because we thought we could kill it, but maybe, just maybe, we could contain it, delay it, stop whatever door it was trying to open. Maria returned the next day. She was waiting on the trail, just standing there like she knew we'd be coming. She handed me a pouch of herbs, protection. She called it, not a weapon, not against this thing. It feeds on memory, she said. On thought, on fear, it doesn't hunt the body. It hunts the mind, the hollow one, she called it. It sleeps beneath the world, and we had disturbed its dreaming. I asked her if we could destroy it. She shook her head. It is not a creature, she said. It is absence, given shape. It does not live, it remembers. We entered the tunnel again. Same entrance, but it wasn't the same. The stone had shifted. The walls seemed closer. The air was heavier, like breathing through cloth, and the tapping had returned, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Tap, tap, tap. We didn't speak. Talking felt dangerous, like it might wake something. Glow sticks we had left last time were gone. Just darkness, and then we reached the chamber. It had changed. The faces were moving now. Not stone, not flesh, something in between. They watched us. Their mouths opened in silent screams. Some of them I recognized. Palmer, a hiker who went missing last spring. Even a kid from town, faces stolen from the world. Davis whispered, it's feeding on them ... Then the tapping grew louder. But not around us, underneath, the floor cracked. A thin black line spread beneath our feet like a wound. And from it, something rose. It wasn't a body. It wasn't alive, it was a shape, made of shadow, arms too long. Fingers like roots, no face, but the impression of one. It didn't walk, it moved, and it spoke inside our heads. You brought me back, Davis raised his weapon. But it was useless. The shadow moved through him like smoke. He collapsed, convulsing, speaking in a voice that wasn't his. You cannot kill what was never born. You cannot bury what has never lived. I grabbed him, pulled him, screamed. The tunnel behind us was gone. The rock had sealed shut. And then the breathing started, not ours, not human. It was coming from the walls, from the stone. From inside the stone, then a whisper, you are mine now. I saw the shadow coming again, stretching, growing. It took up the whole chamber, faces rippling across its form, screams echoing inside my bones. And then Duke barked. He lunged. My old shepherd, Duke, had followed us into the cave. He stood between me and the creature, growling, teeth bared. And around his neck, the red thread Maria had tied, it was glowing. The hollow one recoiled. It hissed not with sound, but pressure. Like a storm inside my skull, and then it retreated. Back into the stone, gone, just like that. I dropped to my knees. Davis was unconscious, but alive. We had survived, but I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I don't remember how we got out of that cave. Not really. I remember the tunnel. I remember dragging Davis across wet stone. I remember Duke's breathing, shallow, weak, his side torn open. And I remember the forest, still to still. The kind of silence that doesn't belong in nature. When we finally reached the ranger cabin, it was just after dawn. The light looked wrong, pale, washed out like the sun had been dimmed. I carried Davis inside. He was burning up, feverish, talking in his sleep. No words, just whispers, repeating over and over. We shouldn't have gone back. I cleaned Duke's wound the best I could. But I couldn't take him to the vet. What would I say? That he fought a creature made of smoke and memory. So I sat beside him, bandaged him, whispered that he was a good boy, that he saved us, but outside. The world had already started changing. The animals were the first to notice. Birds stopped flying over the park. Deer vanished. Even the insects went quiet. At night, I heard things outside the cabin. Steps, not footsteps, not human. Something crawling. Something dragging itself through the dirt. Sometimes it scratched the walls, just 3 long scratches. Always 3, sometimes it knocked. 3 taps, then silence, then again. Tap, 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 dot, dot. One night, I looked out the window and saw a figure. Tall, thin, standing just beyond the tree line. It didn't move, it didn't breathe. It just stood there watching. When I blinked, it was gone. But I know what I saw. The hollow one had gotten out. And it wasn't just watching me anymore, it was moving. I started reviewing old missing person reports, not just from Mammoth, but from the surrounding counties, 10 years back, 20, even earlier. They all followed the same pattern, sudden disappearances. No bodies, no struggle, just gone, and always the same symbols. The circle, the 3 lines, the eye with no pupil. I overlaid the locations onto a map. My hands shook as the lines connected. A spiral, expanding outward, and at the center, the chamber. That night, I heard something new. Voices, not outside, not in my head, inside the cabin. They whispered from beneath the floorboards. They said my name. They said Palmer's name. They said remember. Then silence. When I woke the next morning, there was a new symbol carved into the wood near the fireplace. It wasn't there the night before, but the knife used to carve it was still on the floor. And it was mine. That day, Maria came back. She didn't knock, she just stood outside, waiting. Her eyes were hollow, her skin pale. It has marked you, she said, and now it is calling others. I asked what she meant. She pointed to the ridge behind the cabin. You thought it only wanted you, she said. The hollow one isn't a hunter, it's a herald. It opens the door. Something else walks through. That night, I sat on the porch with a rifle in one hand and the red thread token in the other. Duke lay beside me, breathing slowly, but alert. At 2 in the morning, the pressure shifted. It always started with the pressure. Like the sky dropped 10 feet lower, the tree swayed, but there was no wind. And then they appeared, 3 figures, standing at the edge of the trees. They looked human, almost, but their limbs were too long. Their necks bent at impossible angles. Their eyes, they glowed faintly, not with light, with awareness. They saw me, and I knew it. I raised the rifle. They didn't flinch. They just turned, all at once, like marionettes on the same string. And they walked into the woods. I should have let them go. I didn't. I followed. I left a note for Davis, telling him to lock the door and not open it for anyone. Not even me. The trail led me deep into the old part of the forest. Past the fire break, past the old tower we closed off years ago. No one goes there anymore. Officially, we blamed landslides. Unofficially, too many people went in and didn't come back. In the clearing near the fire tower, I found a symbol carved into a tree, fresh. And next to it, pinned to the trunk with a hunting knife, was a photograph, Palmer, from 2 years ago. His eyes had been scratched out, and above him, written in red ink, "You remember, so we remain." I ran. I didn't look back, but I could feel them following. Not running, just moving, constant, unrelenting. When I got back to the cabin, the door was open. Davis was gone. His journal was on the table. The last page had only 1 sentence. "They are calling me now," and below it, 3 small taps, pressed into the paper like fingernails. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of the room, staring at the front door. I heard scratching on the roof. Not like a raccoon, not like an animal. Like hands, slow, deliberate. Then the whisper returned. But this time, it wasn't inside my head. It was in the room. I turned, and I saw it. Not the hollow one, something worse. It had no face. Just stretched skin pulled tight where eyes and a mouth should be. Its arms were too long, its fingers dragged across the floor, and in its hand was the same stone. The one that appeared on my chest. It held it out to me. I didn't take it. Duke growled low. Every hair on his body raised, his teeth bared. The creature tilted its head. Studying me then, it turned and vanished into the wall. Like it had never been there, but the stone The stone was now on my table, still warm, still pulsing. That's when I understood. The Hollow One didn't escape the cave. I did, and I brought it with me. 3 days passed, I didn't leave the cabin. Not because I was scared, because I knew there was nowhere else to run. Every night, I heard the tapping. Always 3 knocks, then silence, then again. Each one sharper than the last, like it was carving itself into the wood. Into my bones. I stopped trying to sleep. Sleep brought dreams, and dreams brought a closer. Instead, I read Davis's journal. Every page was worse than the one before. He wrote about the same things I saw. Symbols on the trees, strangers standing in the woods. Whispers in the static of the radio. But then, he wrote something else, something I hadn't told anyone. He said the stone was not a piece of the creature. It was a doorway, a living key, and we, the ones who carried it, we were the lock. He believed the Hollow One wasn't trying to kill us. It was using us, feeding off us, growing stronger through us. We were the echo, the memory, the virus, and every time we spoke its name, we brought it closer to someone else. That same day, there was a knock at my door. A boy 15, maybe 16, mud on his shoes, jacket torn. He said his name was Thomas, and he was looking for his sister. Her name was Lily. I froze. Lily had come with Maria weeks ago. The little girl who could see the Hollow One in her dreams. They had disappeared into the forest. I hadn't seen them since. He looked around the cabin like he'd been there before. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're the ranger from the stories. The one who saw the screaming cave. I asked him how he knew about that. He said Lily told him. Before she vanished, she would talk in her sleep. She'd say things about eyes without pupils, about a well in the forest made of roots, about a man made of faces. I asked him where he heard the term the Well of Roots. His answer chilled me. She said that's where he sleeps. Where the Hollow One waits. Thomas pulled a folded map from his pocket, hand-drawn, old, burned at the edges. The same symbols, circles, lines, spiral patterns. At the center, written in shaking letters, the Well of Roots. He looked up at me. You know where it is, don't you? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That afternoon, we left the cabin. Duke followed, limping. But alert, he knew the deeper we walked into the forest, the worse it became. The trees leaned inward. The sunlight barely reached the ground. The birds were gone. Even the wind had vanished. Every 50 feet or so, we found signs. Dead birds, rotting animals, trees carved with fresh symbols. At one point, we passed a pile of stones stacked like a human body. No arms, no legs. Just the shape, like a warning. It took 6 hours to reach the edge of the sinkhole. 30 feet across, roots hanging like veins. Black water at the bottom, still and thick like oil. At the center, a stone platform. Thomas stared into it. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. He started climbing down. I shouted after him, told him to stop, but something in me didn't move. Not fear, not confusion, obedience. It was like part of me wanted him to go, like something inside me had been waiting for him. I watched him reach the bottom, the moment his feet touched the stone. The water began to boil, the roots above us shifted. And then something descended. Not a creature, a shape made of faces. Of mouths sealed shut, of limbs that didn't move on their own. They moved in unison, and in the center. Lily, her eyes wide, but not scared. She was smiling. She reached out to Thomas. He took her hand. And then the roots snapped shut. They wrapped around them both. The platform cracked. The water vanished. The sinkhole collapsed inward, like the earth was folding in on itself. I screamed, but it was too late. Silence returned. Only Duke's howl echoed back. That was 3 days ago. I've not left the cabin since, but I know it isn't over. The forest is changing faster now. The symbols are appearing everywhere. Barns, Street signs, skin. I turned on the radio yesterday, static, nothing else. But buried beneath the noise, I heard my own voice, saying the same words. You remember, so we remain. I finally understood. The Hollow One never needed the cave. It needed us. Our minds, our fear, our stories, and now. The spiral is growing, expanding outward. Every time someone hears the story, it spreads. That's why I'm telling this now, because if you're hearing this, it already knows you, and it's already coming. It was quiet the next morning. Too quiet, not just the woods, not just the air. Inside me, there was a stillness that didn't feel like peace. It felt like something was waiting. I walked to the edge of the forest. The trail where Thomas and Lily disappeared had changed. The trees leaned in tighter now, their bark cracked with fresh symbols. The earth was soft, like it had been dug up and buried again. And in the distance, I could hear the tapping, faint, but constant, tap, 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 the same rhythm that followed me since the chamber, since Palmer, since the faces in the stone. I didn't grab my gear, I didn't pack food. I only took 3 things: the flashlight, the map Maria gave me, and the stone, the one I had buried behind the cabin. It was warm again, beating like a heart. Like it knew, the forest opened for me. It should have felt strange, but it didn't. It felt right. Like coming home to a place I'd never been. The deeper I walked, the more the world unraveled. Sounds began to slow, time stretched. Colors faded, the ground pulsed beneath my boots, like I was walking across something alive. I reached the clearing just before midnight. The well of roots had changed. It was no longer a sinkhole. It was a doorway. Black stone steps spiraled downward into the earth. And above them, carved into the stone, were 5 words. You carried me far enough. I did not hesitate. Each step I took down into the well, I felt something leaving me. First, the scent of pine trees in the morning, then the taste of coffee. Then my brother's face, then my own name. By the time I reached the bottom, I had forgotten everything but why I came. The chamber wasn't a place anymore. It was a wound, a hole in reality. The walls breathed, the roots moved like tendrils, wrapping around memories I didn't remember having. And in the center, it waited. The Hollow One. No longer a shadow, now a form, still shifting. Still unstable, but solid enough to be real. It didn't speak, it didn't move, it just existed. Faces rippled across its skin. Palmer, Davis, Lily, even mine, smiling, screaming, repeating. I raised the stone. The Hollow One reacted instantly. The chamber bent inward, gravity twisted. The air turned to pressure, and in that storm of silence, it finally spoke. But not with a voice, with memory. It showed me the first screen carved into stone. The first lost soul, the first forgotten name. It showed me what it was. Not a creature, not a god, a wound in the world. A hole that needed to be filled with memory, with fear, with you. Let go, it said, become. I dropped to my knees. The stone in my hand burned red hot, fusing to my skin. The chamber closed in. The faces screamed, the ground cracked. But in the chaos, I heard a bark, low, ragged, Duke. He had followed me, even now, even here. He stood at the mouth of the chamber, his old body shaking. But his eyes locked on the creature. He barked again, and in that sound, I remembered my name, my brother's voice. The first time I saw the sky after the mine collapse, I stood up, screamed into the void, and I walked into the creature. It didn't resist, it opened, welcomed. Inside, there was no flesh, no bone, only thought. Endless tunnels of memory. Screams etched into stone. Whispers turning to storms, but at the center. A heart, not beating, not alive, and not of stories. Of pain, of remembrance, I wrapped my arms around it. And I crushed it. I screamed, not in fear, in defiance, and everything shattered. I woke on the forest floor, dawn breaking through the trees. The well of roots was gone. Duke lay beside me alive. The stone was no longer in my hand. The symbols on the trees had faded. The spiral had stopped. I stood. Slowly, every part of me ached. But the world was still. The air was clean, the forest normal. I walked back to the cabin, unsure of how much time had passed when I arrived. No one remembered anything. Palmer, Davis, Thomas, Lily, Maria, all gone, wiped from records, from memory. As if they never existed, but I remember. And I know what I did, and I know it's not over. Because sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear the tapping again, tap, tap, tap. Weeks passed, maybe months, I stopped counting. The forest returned to normal, birdsong came back. Wind moved through the trees, the symbols were gone. No more figures standing in the dark. No more dreams, and for a while, I believed it was over. I rebuilt the porch, repaired the cabin roof. Duke slept more than usual, but he was breathing steady, peaceful. I made coffee every morning and watched the sunrise through the trees. For the first time in years, I felt still. But stillness is dangerous, because stillness is how it starts. One night, I woke up to silence. But not the peaceful kind, the kind that listens back, the kind that holds its breath. I sat up in bed. Duke was already awake. Ears up, staring at the wall, growling soft, low. I reached for my flashlight and scanned the room. Nothing, no movement, no sound. Then I saw it, on the table. The stone, back again, exactly where it had been the first time. Still warm, still pulsing. I didn't touch it. Not this time. I buried it deeper than before. Wrapped in salt, iron, ash. Every superstition I could remember, but it didn't matter. That night, I heard whispers under the floorboards. And the next morning, a new mark appeared on the porch. A circle, 3 lines. And a single word carved beneath it, remember. That's when I realized something terrible. The hollow one didn't die, it didn't fade. It did exactly what it always wanted. It became a story, and I was the one telling it. I was the echo, I was the door. I went back to the ranger station, asked to see the old records. But there were none. No Palmer, no Davis, no Maria, no missing hikers. Even the reports I had written, gone, erased. But people had started disappearing again. Not near the cave, in other places, other towns, other forests. Always the same signs. The same symbols, the same silence, the same 3 taps. I found a radio recording from a town 3 counties over. Someone picked up static at 3:13 a.m. Buried under the noise was a whisper, not a voice, just a message. You remember, so we remain. I tried to forget. God knows I tried. I drank. I burned the map Maria gave me. I even set fire to the old cabin, hoping it would die with the ashes. But it doesn't work like that, because memory isn't in paper. It's in us, in the things we carry, in the stories we tell. And now, you've heard mine. You've pictured the chamber, the faces, the tapping, the whisper. Now it knows you too. It sees you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one night. When you wake up at 3:13 a.m. and the air feels heavy. When the radio hisses, when your dog growls at a corner of the room where nothing stands. And you hear it, tap, tap, tap. That's when you'll remember this story. And that's all it needs, not belief, not fear, just memory. Just one person to remember, and now that person is you. So if you ever see a stone on your windowsill, still warm, still pulsing, don't touch it. Don't speak, and above all, don't tell anyone. Because once you tell the story, it's too late. You're part of the echo now, and the hollow one is coming home.